Well, now we have a kit of tools that are available to us to kind of adjust our internal state. And any one of those could be used to turn off thinking. But the most powerful one, in my opinion, and by way of experience and sort of how I'm viewing the research literature, I'm sure there are others out there that would disagree with me, and that's fine, is Yoga Nidra. If ever there was a practice that I wish every human being on the planet would do besides go out and view morning sunlight, it would be Yoga Nidra. Let's just call it its original name, Yoga Nidra. The goal is to stay awake, to be conscious, while deliberately relaxing the body. That's a very useful practice. Feels similar to meditation in a way. Could be called a meditation, but it has some distinct benefits. First of all, a beautiful study that was done in Denmark at a medical school in Copenhagen showed that people that do a Yoga Nidra practice get a 60% increase in baseline dopamine levels in the basal ganglia, a brain area that's associated with the preparation for movement and the withholding of movement. So it essentially can be looked at as a practice that changes neurochemicals in the brain that restore mental and physical vigor. That's how I think of Yoga Nidra. It's sort of like sleep. There are some studies emerging, including some that I'm planning with Dr. Matt Walker at Berkeley, one of the preeminent sleep researchers in the world, that are going to explore whether or not little pockets of the brain are actually sleeping or in rapid eye movement sleep-like states during Yoga Nidra. If you think about rapid eye movement sleep, just as a very relevant aside, it's a state in which the brain is very active and the body is completely still, much like Yoga Nidra. Okay, brain active, body still. Now, what's unique about Yoga Nidra is that there's this instruction in the Nidra, if it's a traditional one, that talks about going from thinking and doing to being and feeling. Okay, so let's step back as neuroscientists and we say, okay, thinking is a lot about anticipating future. It could be about thinking about the past. It could be thinking about things that are happening now, but it's a very forebrain dependent process. Doing is basal ganglia, action generation, withholding action, and forebrain circuitry as well. I should say prefrontal cortical circuitry as well. Now, being and feeling, now this is starting to sound a little bit like quote unquote softer language, but there's nothing soft about this language, because if we just put a neuroscience lens on it, we say, okay, what is that really about? That's about bringing ourselves from exteroception, monitoring of the external world beyond the confines of our skin, to monitoring of the internal world within the confines of our skin. And there's something magical about shifting our perception to interoception, from our skin inward, in that it takes us out of thinking. Whereas when we're monitoring the external world, for reasons that are sort of logical but a little bit harder to articulate, then it's more about anticipating things, trying to figure out what goes with what's separate from what. The moment we get to the level of our skin and inward, we know what's what and what's separate from what. It's just us inward. It's sort of, there's one thing. Rarely do we think, oh, here's my brain and here's my leg. Now, Nidra then steps us through that. And so what it does is it brings all of our cognition into this interoceptive mode, and then boom, we are in this mode of being and feeling. So I don't think of being and feeling as turning off thinking. I think of it as bringing thinking to the level of our sensation, of our body. Yoga Nidra, I think, is perhaps the most powerful practice for learning how to turn off one's thoughts. And so when one steps back from the research literature and says, okay, what do we know for sure about Yoga Nidra NSDR? We know that this can be done for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, or an hour. We know that it can very reliably improve levels of wakefulness, cognition, and vigor post-Nidra. We know that it restores dopamine levels to a marked extent in the basal ganglia. We know that the brain goes into little pockets of sleep-like states. This needs to be explored further. And we know that it mimics rapid eye movement sleep. And we know that people who do it find it easier to make themselves fall back asleep should they need to, and they develop much stronger powers of autonomic regulation, their ability to take themselves out of stress if they need to. I mean, if ever there was a powerful practice, Yoga Nidra is that practice. And so when I step back from the landscape of practices that can help us turn off thinking or et cetera, this is probably a good time to just, mention that, meditation I view as an exploration of one's own consciousness. I also view it as a perceptual exercise, shifting one's perception to a particular location as opposed to just wherever the mind may take it. Put simply, I mean, it's far more profound than that, as you know, and as many know. But Meditation has been shown to, reduce stress, improve focus, improve memory. I'm thinking mainly of the studies by Wendy Suzuki's lab at NYU. I'm thinking of the studies that were done out of the University of Wisconsin that are talked about in Altered States, which is a wonderful book, and the work that you've talked about in your books. When I think about Yoga Nidra, non-sleep deep rest, it's really about restoring mental and physical vigor and getting better at regulating one's own autonomic internal kind of hinge, going back and forth between sympathetic and parasympathetic, that, kind of fight or flight and rest and digest, alert and calm, learning how to adjust that in a conscious way. And then when I think of practices like breath work, well, it depends on the breath work. And then we can simplify it by saying when inhales are more vigorous and made longer deliberately than exhales, heart rate goes up, alertness goes up. When exhales are made longer and more vigorous and done deliberately, well, then heart rate tends to go down and we tend to shift more towards a state of calm. And then, of course, there's hypnosis. And hypnosis to me is self-hypnosis, which is a clinical tool that David Spiegel and others around the world, but mainly David Spiegel and his father, popularized within the formal field of psychiatry. And hypnosis is a combination of alertness and calm that we know lends itself to neuroplasticity. What is hypnosis really for? It's not meditation. It's not to calm down. It's to solve a specific problem, to quit smoking, to learn how to regulate pain, to any number of different things that hypnosis has been shown in peer-reviewed studies to do. So when I step back, I say, okay, meditation, non-sleep deep rest, aka Yoga Nidra, or I should say Yoga Nidra, aka non-sleep deep rest, breath work, and hypnosis. Well, now we have a kit of tools that are available to us to kind of adjust our internal state. And any one of those could be used to turn off thinking. But the most powerful one, in my opinion, and by way of experience and sort of how I'm viewing the research literature, I'm sure there are others out there that would disagree with me, and that's fine, is Yoga Nidra. If ever there was a practice that I wish every human being on the planet would do besides go out and view morning sunlight, it would be Yoga Nidra. Mm-hmm. And of course, this has been available for thousands of years. And unfortunately, it has not gotten the traction worldwide that I think it deserves. And especially at this time in human history when the world seems so tense with friction of all sorts of kinds, but also internal friction for people. I think it's just, it's something that I really want to shine a light on as a tremendously beneficial tool. Yeah, Yoga Nidra has such similarity to rapid eye movement sleep. As far as we know, it's not the exact same brain state, but the similarity again is mind alert, body still, which is exactly what happens during rapid eye movement sleep. And we know rapid eye movement sleep is essential for formation of memories, for uncoupling of negative emotions from previous day experiences. It tends to be more enriched in the later parts of the night and so on. For me, Yoga Nidra is the practice to do when I wake up in the morning, but I don't feel completely rested. I'll do anywhere from 10 minutes to 30 minutes of that. And then in the afternoon, instead of a nap, I'll do Nidra. And sometimes I'll fall asleep, admittedly. And then if I wake up in the middle of the night, Nidra is my solution. I think that mind active, body still is such an interesting and frankly unusual state, unless we're in rapid eye movement sleep, that most people, until they try it, can't really appreciate the immense value that it brings. But the beautiful thing is it works the first time and it works every time.
Thanks for watching. If you found this information helpful, be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more health and wellness tips.